Welcome back to the channel, guys. It is another episode in the VW Bus restoration series, and it is a 40-degree rainy day in April. Not as appetizing for bus work, but I'm at a point where pretty much all of my accessories that I had anticipated on restoring and painting are, if not done, very close to being done. So that means I can start really assembling this engine, and I'm looking forward to all the progress I'm going to make in probably the next week, definitely within this video. To give you an idea of craziness that's been going on over the past 2 weeks, kind of off camera, this is what the garage looks like now. As you can see, still have some parts hanging and drying. This has been my prep and paint removal area. This has been a little bit of a drying area as well. And where the chair is set up now and the fan has been my assembly area. A couple little things here and there, like these tubes for the heat channeling, I believe, to go into the cab from the engine, and this ignition coil I wanted to get fixed up. And I actually bought brand new valve covers, but I wasn't super impressed with the quality of the metal, and the paint was already chipping and showing some rust. So I took a look at my old valve covers, and after clearing off some rust, I found a VW logo and they feel a lot better. So I'm already an hour in at this point, just taking off the paint on this and removing the old gasket. So I'm gonna restore those as well. But overall, the engine hasn't changed much. I've got the oil tower on. I tapped a hole in my head because I forgot to select a option at checkout of the new heads for a tapping for the cylinder head temperature sensor, and I initially drilled and tapped it on the wrong side. So after some research and re-drilling, I got it in for cylinder 3 in the original position that it was on when I took the engine out of the bus. Today I'm really hoping to capture some progress with a couple more accessories on this and setting some of the tins. Something else I've been doing in the meantime is also reassembling the fan shroud. I've got the flaps back on, the boot for the alternator, the mount on this side. And I found these flaps that were actually in my exhaust. I couldn't find the pins, so I just bent a piece of wire they're supposed to block air from going back into the fan from the fan that's in the engine bay for heat circulation into the cab. And so I guess the theory is if the fan for the heat circulation is generating more pressure than the fan for the engine, these would theoretically close and prevent back airflow. I don't really think it's significant, but I found the little caps and I threw them on anyway, even though I found plenty of videos of people rebuilding without them. I am a little concerned that I used too small of a diameter of a wire here, and they may make some jingling noise. So I don't know, I may throw a bead of silicone on the flaps just to prevent it from jingling while it's on. The other thing I did was purchase a new alternator, and I put the new painted pulley on there and the new back cover, so got that all wired up. So let's not beat around the bush, let's get right into it and make some progress on this thing. First thing I want to do today is install the oil fill tube. Then I want to lay out some of the preliminary tins on the engine. Let's get into it. Alright, that was a little bit more confusing than I thought it would be, and still not entirely sure of the layout of the rest of these, but I will figure it out. I believe it's time to put on the fan shroud, so I'm going to give that a shot. Would you look at that? This Type 4 engine is coming along. Couple pieces of tin, one big fan shroud, and it looks completely different. I am unbelievably happy. I'm now going to try installing the alternator and the fan in the front. I've got the alternator mounted up and at least in a place that's good enough for now. The seal really hardened up. I was trying to reuse it that originally came on the back here, and it's making it very difficult to get things perfectly aligned because it's almost, I think it's supposed to be rubber, but it's as hard as plastic now. So alternator doesn't move very easily when trying to adjust and whatever. So I'll probably replace that at a later point, and I've got things relatively loose for now. But cosmetically, awesome. Let's keep going. All right, guys. I mean, talk about satisfying. Yeah, she is looking good. I got all the tins on. They're on loosely. I'm sure some of them are destined to come off again, but I wanted to see how it looks, and I think I'm going to do the same thing with the air intake, those red tubes that I painted, because I think that's going to really make this thing stand out. So stay tuned, and we'll see how that comes out. All right, guys, it is 2 days later since I was last working on the engine, and I could not be happier with how this is looking at the moment. I'm at a point now where I have loosely put on all of the engine tins just to see where everything fits. I have the alternator installed. I have the fan on with the belt and a new timing scale. And I'll have to do a little bit of disassembly because as I try to rotate the fan over, I have no spark plugs in, so it should be fairly easy. But as I try to rotate the fan over, I feel and hear a noise that is making me think there's something hitting. Either the fan within the shroud or maybe the fan on the timing scale that I just installed. So I'll rotate the engine over now and see if I could show you what's going on. So as you can see, it gets pretty easy to turn. And then you hear a squeak and it becomes very stiff again. You know what? It just occurred to me that I don't have the torque plate on. And because I don't have that on, there's a good amount of axial play going on with my crankshaft at the moment. So I can't get that on until I get the engine off the stand again. All right, so after a little bit more fiddling around with the axial play and the fan, I do believe that the amount of play that I have is allowing the fan to come out enough to hit on something. But just to be sure, I do want to put on the torque plate that I have onto the back, and in order to do that, I've just got to loosen up, I think, one of these engine mount arms, get it out of the way, and slide in the torque converter and torque that down to spec. So I'm going to give that a try right now. All right, I was able to move this arm out of the way. I was able to get the torque plate installed with the bolts. Only thing I was not able to do was slip my torque wrench in and have enough space here to get it torqued down correctly. Also, the crankshaft moves on me when I try to turn it over, but I'm going to save torquing that down for later. Now I just want to make sure that this fan moves freer than before with no squeaks or metal on metal noises. It is a little bit better, and I'm not getting a squeak, but it still seems stubborn at a certain spot. And again, I have the spark plugs out, so I would think it would be fairly easy to turn over all the way. Maybe my hands are just too weak. I think my fingers just got tired there. This feels pretty good. Oops. So the next thing I want to do is install this distributor drive shaft, which goes into that hole there. And I just verified that my timing is correct. You can see the little white paint mark on the fan, and it corresponds with the 0 on my timing scale. And I was looking into, I won't be able to show you, but I was looking into the cylinder 1 spark plug hole and was able to see the piston and verify that this is top dead center for cylinder number 1. So, I'm going to install this shaft now. So now that I know my cylinder 1 is at top dead center, I'm going to install this washer that goes at the bottom of the distributor drive shaft. And the easiest way to do that is putting it on the end of a old push rod, putting the push rod into place and dropping the washer and having it sit there. I'm just going to apply a little bit of assembly lube to the end, the gearing of the distributor drive shaft, and set it into place. So what I'm doing to actually triple check that I'm doing the right thing is put my distributor at the cylinder number 1 timing, and I'm going to line up the shaft and the bottom of the distributor roughly, angle the distributor as if I was setting it, and then place the shaft into place. Just going to use a flathead to sink it down into place. If the washer is preventing the shaft from seating, I think. Maybe it did go. Nah, my shaft is not turning with the engine. Alright, I'm going to pull it out and try again. This time I'm doing the same thing, except I put the washer on the bottom of the shaft instead of using the push rod. Now it is seated. Just going to install this spring. Oh my god. The spring just went into the oil galley. What the hell? Oh, wow. I was literally just trying to set the spring into place there, and there's an oil galley inside this shaft where that spring went. Oh boy. Oh no. Holy shit. Oh my god, I even heard it. I thought it just fell onto the tin here. Wow. That is not something they warn you about. I guess I should have set the spring with the shaft. Oh no. Are you serious? Holy shit. I am speechless. I don't even know if you can see that. Hang on. There's a hole in the side of that bore for the distributor drive shaft, and as I was fiddling around with that spring, it entered that hole. Oh my god. It's the things that you think are no big deal. They're just accessories to install. Fuck me. I don't even know where that leads, and I'm scared to put my finger in there and push it even further. I feel like I heard it fall into the crankcase. I'm gonna have to research before I even turn this engine over where that oil galley leads, because it could be sitting right there, and I don't want to turn it and have it end up at the bottom of the crankcase. Oh my god. I truly cannot believe this is happening. I've never seen a single warning about that hole and the fact that a spring would fit through there. I need a break. Holy shit. Okay, it's been a couple hours and I've had some time to mostly cool off. This is one of those things that meditation and engine building have in common, in that there's just going to be times when you gotta breathe it out. I'm at a point where this could either be very easy to resolve or completely catastrophic, and I don't know which one of those is the situation yet. I haven't moved the engine, haven't tilted it or anything. I did get my hands on a borescope, so I'm going to try to stick this camera into the slot for the distributor shaft and just see if I can see anything inside that oil galley. Part of me thinks I heard the spring hit onto something as if it was falling into the crankcase, and that's what made me stop for a second. I thought I pulled it out, but I didn't. So let's quit yapping and take a look. Was I not filming that whole fucking time? Well, guys, I don't know if I got that on video or not, but I was able to stick the camera down into the hole where the drive shaft goes for the distributor, and the hole, the oil galley, I believe the spring fell through, goes right into the crankcase. I was able to see the teeth on one of the gears, so I'm thinking the spring is somewhere in the crankcase at the moment, and my next best guess or shot thing to do would be to take this oil tower off and see if I can stick the scope through there. How to turn a 15-minute job into a 5-hour job. There's the shot of the gears on the crank. I'm trying to go through the fill tube. That's the dipstick. Can't really see much. So I verified that the oil galley in the distributor drive shaft channel in the crankcase leads directly to the crankcase, so I'm pretty confident in saying that that spring is sitting somewhere inside the crankcase. Tried looking through the oil breather tower, can't really see much through there. Stuck the scope through the oil fill tube, can't really see much through there. Now I'm thinking, just because of where that drive shaft for the distributor lies on the crankcase, it might be worth my while to remove the oil filter mount and possibly the oil cooler. Of course, that means removing the fan. Also, before I do anything else, I might try to remove the drain plug here and the taco plate and just see if I can see anything with the scope. Let me give that a try. Well, I can't seem to see anything conclusive through the oil drain plug, and before I keep removing items that would give me a hole to the crankcase, I think I'm gonna call it for tonight and sleep on it a little bit. Man, this one sucks. This hurts. Amongst the darkness, amongst the shadows, there is light. There is still hope. Let me show you what I found here. So I decided to stick the borescope into the shaft, but not into the hole, the galley there. And I decided to keep going into where that distributor shaft sits. And I know it's very tough to tell, but on top of the gears, right at the bottom of that screen, I believe right there, I'm 90% sure that is the spring. So, I know it's magnetic. I just have to figure out how to get something down in there, just around that corner. And I may have to make a magnet, so we'll be right back. See if I can come up with something. I'm glad I didn't rotate anything or shift the engine, because it definitely would have fell off of that gear. So let me try to make something now. So I've crafted this little tool out of a hanger wire and a magnet that you would find in a drill bit like this. And I'm gonna scope it one more time just to see if I can really nail down the angle that I need to get in there and bend this wire to get near the spring. I want to make sure I do this once and do it right, because I don't need something from my tool also falling into the crankcase. So just to confirm, right on top of that gear is that spring right there. You can almost touch it with the camera. That's it. So I didn't end up trying that tool that I made because I got worried that that magnet on the end wasn't held in place strong enough, and I would risk getting the magnet stuck onto something else in the case and pulling the stick back out and losing the magnet. So I ordered a thin magnetic retriever on Amazon, and it'll be here in 2 days. Pretty confident that'll get the job done. Thank God. Alright guys, I am out of ideas for tonight. My last idea was trying to take another drill bit holder like this, cutting off the end and shaving down the outside to decrease the width of the thing, and somehow it lost its magnetism severely in the shaving and cutting process. I don't know, from the heat or from the blade spinning really fast, I don't know, but this was the piece that I had cut off of it. Anyway, I got those Amazon parts on order and they will be here in 2 days, so I might mess around tomorrow, but if anything, I should give it another shot in the next couple days, so stay tuned. Now, I have just received my Amazon tool that I ordered, and it looks pretty promising. It came with 2 magnetic tools. One is a little wider and stronger, the blue, than the red, but I'm gonna give this a shot. I'm thinking I might be able to stick this one down with the camera, and I may give that a try first. So let's see how it goes. Got my 2 tools there. I want to use this camera just to triple check it's in the same place. Yep, right there. Now, to be honest, I don't think I'll have enough space to put the camera in and one of these magnet tools. So I'm just gonna go for it. I think I want to try this blue one first. It's a little thicker, but it's really strong. The magnet itself keeps wanting to... Oh my god. Oh. Yeah. Woo! Oh, thank God. Holy sh... wow, an Amazon tool that actually worked. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I just sprinted inside to celebrate. Oh, but we are back. Let's go. Holy shit. I gotta install the oil filter and the drain plug again and clean up the camera. I'm gonna put the distributor on. I'll use a little bit of assembly lube, keep this in place, and onward we march. I honestly thought I may be tearing down the engine again the past 2 days, so this is unbelievable. Very happy. Wow. The ups and downs of this thing. Now I'm gonna give installing the distributor a shot. I've got my crankshaft set to 0 degrees, or the firing point for cylinder 1. Now I'm lining up the distributor drive shaft with the bottom of the distributor, and as if I was placing the distributor into place, placing the shaft. That way it lines up with the crank, with the spring in place with a little bit of assembly lube. Now just need to twist this a little bit, and I do believe now that my distributor drive shaft is set in place. And just to double check, I'm going to put in the distributor and make sure that it is on cylinder number 1. Looks good. I'm gonna fasten down the distributor and then maybe just roll over the engine a few times just to double check that all is aligned. Of course, I gotta clean up the nut and the washer. We're back with a cleaned washer and nut. How the hell did I get this one off? All right, we are starting to get back together. I'm gonna put the cap on this distributor. I wanna get the ignition coil installed. I don't know if it's really necessary right now, but I just wanna see how it looks because I cleaned it up. And also gotta get the mustache bar on and the exhaust fairly soon. All right, a little bit more time has passed and we've made progress. Cleaned up the old oil fill tube funnel thing here with the cap, cleaned up the distributor cap, the ignition coil I installed. This will be connected here. I put all of the spark plug wires in place just to see how they look. I also cleaned these up with some degreaser. It actually took quite some time to get the wires all clean, but they're showing a gray color now and not a crappy dirty black. So that's nice and it looks good. My next steps, I still have to technically set my valves correctly, and that's going to be a lot easier now with the fan and the timing scale on. So that will be coming up very shortly. I have to get a second set of hands and help me and connect the thermostat wire to the ducting here. What else? I have to test my current injectors to see if they're good or if I need to order new ones. Something deep inside me tells me I'll just be ending up purchasing new injectors, but we'll see. And then I gotta get this exhaust on as well, and the mustache bar before that. So not 100% sure what I'll do first. Man, I'm not far away from these fuel lines either, and I know these all have to be disassembled and cleaned. I bought new sections for the rubber areas, but the metal ones are gonna require maybe like a pipe brush and some intake cleaner. One item I still haven't figured out yet is this exhaust gas recirculation system, this EGR. The actual unit that is welded onto the exhaust is completely rusted off and broken, so I would have to order a new filter, I guess you call that. And this valve here that sits right near the throttle body for the exhaust gas recirculation is all gunked up. I haven't found too much, although I really haven't searched too much, but my question is there a bypass for that? Do I have to use an EGR system? Does my engine run better without the EGR? Keep in mind, I'm also running a fuel-injected engine, so I don't know if the computer does any sort of calculation on my exhaust gas circulation. But anyway, this is the subject for this video. If any of you experts out there have opinions on this, mine, as you can see, is completely shot. So please let me know in the comments. All right, guys, it is the following day since we recovered the spring from the crankcase. I was doing some research on the fuel injectors for this bus, and there's a way to test them and there's a way to just clean them. Cleaning them doesn't necessarily mean that they'll run correctly once they're installed. And judging by, not sure if you can see, but judging by how clogged all of these fuel lines are, I'm guessing these injectors are severely, oh, look at that. Fuel that just melted or something. Just came loose now. So this whole system really needs to be gone through, if not just replaced. Since it's such a nice day today, it's in the mid-60s, I've got the bus open and I need to remove the rest of the fuel lines and the fuel tank, because last time we had a gander through the top there, it was really bad. Rust floating everywhere. Fuel was, I don't even know what color to call it, red. So anyway, I'm going to spend a few minutes getting this cover plate off with some hidden screws under here, and then hopefully removing the tank. So let's get into it. All right, that wasn't too bad. The outside of the tank actually isn't in that bad of a shape, but the inside can be very difficult to show, but inside really looks like this, and it's all just caked up crap. I really don't know if I want to try to restore this or purchase a new one and put my head at ease, but they run around 300 bucks, so I have to weigh out my options a little bit. Compartment looks really good though. That's paint that never sees the light of day, so that is the original color of this bus, which is pretty cool. And I'll definitely want to do a cleaning in here. If I got brand new engine and transmission coming in, I don't want it to live in here. I want it to be nice and clean as well. So not bad. Time to come up with a game plan for it. All right, it's been a few weeks since I've last recorded, and what I'd really like to do today is get this transmission power washed, degreased, and cleaned up. I was going online trying to order a rebuild kit for the thing since I have it out, and I'm pretty sure it's an 010 automatic transmission, but I was trying to find a code stamped on the case, and it's so dirty that I am unable to see anything, so I gotta clean this thing up before I order a rebuild kit. I'm not exactly sure where I left off with showing all the accessories that I got on the engine, but it looks like this now. It's been sitting like this for about a week and a half, and I am very pleased. Just placed a big parts order last night. Should be the last big order of materials that I need, including a new fuel tank, because this one is in decent condition on the outside, but on the inside there is just flaking rust everywhere. Kind of hard to see, but it is really nasty in there, and I'm not saying that this is unsavable, maybe of value. Maybe I'll try cleaning it up and reselling it, but because you have to remove the engine and transmission just to get at it again, I decided to spend the $300 and just get a new tank. Peace of mind. We've got so much more money to spend on this bus. So I'm waiting for that to come in. Should be here this week. Also purchased fuel injectors. Also purchased new fuel lines, stainless steel, so they should look really good and be pretty durable. Decided I'm going to try bypassing the EGR or just plating it off, because I don't really think it's necessary and probably causes more headache than serves a good purpose. So in the meantime, I'm gonna get this transmission cleaned up, order a rebuild kit for that as well. Rebuilding that thing will be a project of its own. I don't expect it'll be rocket science, but I've never rebuilt a transmission before, so it'll be a little bit of a learning curve. Also took the time to clean up my tables and the floor a little bit and keep the workshop clean. I don't know if I got a good shot of this exhaust before, but I was able to clean this up a little bit. Got a suggestion from a gentleman saying now's a good time to convert to old style exhaust because it lets the engine breathe a little bit more than this one. This one is about a year short. I think the 79, it wasn't produced for California, but it doesn't have a catalytic converter. It does have a muffler. This guy. And it's got some holes in it. My game plan is to restore this exhaust to the best I can. I'm gonna install it once I get the engine and the transmission up inside the bus and check on the health of this engine. Make sure it runs first, make sure there's nothing catastrophic wrong with it, and then I'll worry about the exhaust. So for now, just want to get everything I need to get this thing up and running, and then I'll worry about some upgrades. For now, let's get this transmission clean. So I've got the transmission lately washed and clean. It's not perfect, certainly better than it was before. And I power washed it, let it sit for a little bit. I'm noticing some flash rust here and some other portions, so I'm gonna let that sit for now. I was able to find the code 010 there, and underneath the shift linkage here, again, 010 or 010. So that's it. That's what I was looking for. I think this is going to be a good enough clean for now. I want to get the CV axles off on both sides and make this thing as light as possible so I can separate the gearbox and the transmission to get it up on the table for this assembly once my rebuild kit comes in. All right, guys, it is another 2 days later, and I have been doing just a bunch of side quests that I didn't necessarily need to capture on film, but they have been a ton of work. First thing I did was clean off the top of the rear here. I just got tired of anytime I was reaching in here for parts or putting stuff here, getting my hands dirty. So got that cleaned off, and then got to cleaning out all of the gunk that was built up, all of the oil and stuff picked up off the road that was in all of these little crevices. There's still a good amount of rust back here on the sides where the battery and the auxiliary battery go, but it is much better than it was before. Did get the new gas tank, so be putting that in shortly. Installed the new rubbers onto the fill tube there, as well as here behind this metal. And this was extremely tedious. It took hours to do. Combination of vacuuming, rinsing with the garden hose, degreasing with a spray gun, using a steam cleaner, and then a bunch of paper towels, as you can see, to finish it off. And I'm probably still going to go through one more time and just spray it all down and wipe until it's clean on the rag, but that was a lot. The reason I'm doing it is because I want everything that I touch to be clean. I may even put a coat of paint in there, and even though it's not going to color match or look good at all, it'll serve as a little bit of protectant for the rust there, so it's not going to get any worse. So rather have ugly paint than no paint. There is the new gas tank. I haven't opened it yet. I'm still waiting on some felt pads to arrive that exist somewhere on the tank. Maybe not. Anyway, I do have to compare the new one with the old one. I did want to take some of these accessories off of the cover plate for the gas tank and clean that up a bit. Maybe put a coat of paint on there. Some of the other parts I just picked up are new transmission mounts. They exist on the crossbar at the top of the transmission toward the rear, almost where it meets with the engine. These ones I measured will fit in there, and it even says upper mount 72 to 79. However, they're not the same shape as the ones that are currently in there, so I need to do a little bit of research, but I'm not exactly comfortable putting these guys in, given that they're circular and the other ones are more oval. Got some spark plug seals, picked up a bunch of fuel line clamps and some exhaust nuts, as well as a differential oil pan gasket. And got 2 more orders coming in. So one contains injectors and another contains a bunch of fuel line stuff. So that'll probably be in the next video for now. And I think for the end of this video, what I want to do is work on separating the transmission from the gearbox. The reason I want to separate the two is because I want to, let's call it, rebuild or at least replace every gasket, every piece of rubber involved with the transmission, maybe some friction plates and whatnot. But the reason I want to separate the transmission from the gearbox is because in order to order the right kit, rebuild kit, I want to verify that the transmission is a 010 and not an 090, and I am confused because on the differential it says 090 and it's hard to read, I'm sure, but on the transmission it reads 010. So I'm inclined to believe that I'll be ordering an 010 automatic transmission rebuild kit. However, I just want to separate the two, and there should be a very legible stamp on the inside of the transmission that would confirm. So probably overkill, but it's 4 bolts to separate the two, so I'm just going to do that real quick. All right, got the tranny out, tilted upward. This is probably how I'll be reassembling it. I think I want to take this pan off and maybe wire brush this down, put a fresh coat of paint on it. So the code in here that I was looking for, a little tough to read, but it actually says 090. So I am now lost again because the outside of the transmission says 010, which is a automatic transmission type made by Volkswagen, and the inside says 090, as well as the transaxle or diff casing says 090. So I'm not sure which one to order, but I will figure it out. So I think that's going to be it for this video, guys. We are getting dangerously close to reinstallation of this Type 4 engine, looking phenomenal, back into the VW bus. I cannot wait. I'm coming up with a game plan for reinstallation, just staying 2 steps ahead because getting it out was such a pain. At the moment, I think what I'm going to do is move the engine off the stand as it is now. That way it's as light as possible. I'm not going to add anything else. And from there, we'll bring it over to the bus. We, meaning me and 2 friends. From there, I will place it underneath the bus. I'll attach the engine to the transmission and the gearbox. And then hopefully between the 3 of us, we can lift it into place. From there, I'll install the heat exchange or headers and the rest of the exhaust, just so it's as light as possible going back in and more maneuverable. So that's the game plan for now. I know I'm all over the place, but appreciate the watch and all you people commenting. It really is helpful. So any advice you have, any suggestions, always appreciated. And thanks for watching. See you in the next one.